And we're live on a Sunday night, Dunaway After Dark. It is August the 25th, 2024 AD, and AD stands for After Dark. That is Chris Marler. He is Vern Funquist right here, and we've got the bourbon. He
Yeah.
just asked me before we started. He said, "What are you drinking?" I said, uncomfortably, it is called Chicken Cock, but it is a wonderful bourbon. It's
Yep.
a rye that I'm drinking tonight. It's delicious. What about you?
I got a bottle of Buffalo Trace. It's an awkward
Mm.
story, but we had a listener a few years ago who got mad at me for saying that Kentucky was going to lose a game. They did. And he offered to send me a bottle of bourbon
Oh.
to bury the hatchet. And then I was like, I'm not going to give this guy my address. And thank God I didn't. So he sent a box of wood shavings with an empty bottle of Maker's Mark in it to my buddy's apartment because I was like, I'm not going to give him my apartment. And then 2 years later, I'm down here at my buddy's place now, and he has had this box that he's had for 2 years. The guy actually did send me a bottle of Buffalo Trace. So I got an aged bottle of Buffalo Trace from some nut job in Kentucky.
I worked in Kentucky for 2 years, so you'll have to narrow it down on the nut job description
Yeah.
there. They're as passionate about Kentucky basketball as Alabama fans are about football. Chris Marler at Vern Funquist on everything social media when his accounts are not on hiatus because of Twitter or Instagram or Facebook rules. You're back up and running. You have a lot of other things happening. Before we talk about what we saw week 0
Yep.
and everything else, tell me everything you have going on in your life. Start with South Carolina lockdown and then work your way to what you're doing for us.
Yeah, so we'll start from scratch. It's Vern Funquist CFB. Sadly, I did lose both Vern Funquist different spelling accounts. So there's that. But yeah, man. So Vern Funquist CFB on Twitter and Instagram. I'm working with Baton Rouge, or working with ESPN 104.5 in Baton Rouge, and a new venture we got over there with LouisianaSports.net with me and Matt Moscona, and some other people too. I don't want to be super guilty by association because he's got a lot of anti-Bama content out there. Then I'm hosting a Locked On Gamecocks for South Carolina this season as well, because I live in Columbia, South Carolina. And then I finally got the call from the big leagues, and I get to do a show called Cover Crimson. It's called All Tied Up with Cover Crimson, with my good buddy Clint Lamb as a part of the Next Round Live. So I'm really excited about that last one, especially, and excited to talk about Bama this season.
All right. So for the first 282 people who are on here with us early right now, thank you for watching us. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe here, but also covercrimson.com, covercrimson.com, $1. Go check it out. You get some of the shows like Chris's and Clint's. That's free. Just go over to covercrimson.com and disrupt the media, follow all that stuff there, and you get their shows for free. But there's some behind paywall message board stuff and stories with great content. Same thing for Auburn, thebarnauburn.com. It's our 2 team sites. We're associated with this. So if you like the work we do, we have found the people that give you the Alabama and Auburn information in an entertaining fashion. And you can get that at covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Just $1 to start off and see if you like it before you jump into that yearly subscription there. We're going to jump into things right after I tell you about the show is brought to you by our friends at Roback, roback.com, promo code TNR20, TNR20, 20% off that first order there. That includes now the new stadium and team wear, cool little Auburn Jordan-Hare Stadium golfing shirts and some hoodies there. And the same with, I call it just says Bryant-Denny Stadium, but it's Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. In my eyes, it's all the same image. They've got that shirt now, some Alabama Crimson Script A stuff that our buddy Jalen Milroe is promoting over there. So roback.com, promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off. And the first thing I want to tackle with you, Marler, is this topic right here. In my opinion, watching the 2 biggest games in week 0, the helmet communications, I believe, Georgia Tech's not a pace team anyway.
Yeah.
I believe the helmet communication slowed Florida State and really slowed SMU down. I don't think their offenses ran as smooth. We'll talk about DJU in a second. But I think the helmet communications, the talking and everything made those 2 teams that wanted to play at pace play a little bit slower. What do you think about helmet communications so far?
So I think you're spot on. I really do. We were talking about this on my other pod with my co-host who's an FSU grad, and he brought that up, and it was something I honestly hadn't even thought about. until then. I think one of the things that's been weird about college football over the past season or two is you saw this very rigid, strict, snail pace of any change in NCAA football or NCAA athletics in general. And like you didn't see a lot of change at all because NCAA had like a stranglehold on everything they were able to do and the amount of money they were able to make. And then they just all at once they realized they were about to lose control, they just said, you know what, you guys do whatever you want. Like NIL stuff, do it. Like, let's make as many changes as possible. We'll do like the early recruiting thing. Like all these changes happened at once. And I think it kind of gets lost on us at times, even if we cover it, is like, there's so many things that are changed in just the style of play, the pace of play, like you said, the 2-minute warning, like in helmet comms especially. I think it did slow people down because I think you've seen for the past several years, you see people that are like holding up the signs with like the 4 weird clues on the side, right? It's like a picture of like the hedgehog and then like the number 7 or whatever. Like that, I think was a staple, and probably people were used to that. This is, I think, going to take a lot to get used to. And I'll tell you another thing too, Jim. If you're watching the game and you see Haynes King doing this in Ireland with 52,000 people, what happens when you go play in a real stadium?
I know. We got to turn the volume up, get some inner ears or something if we're going to play on an SEC road game. Mm-hmm. If it was that hard at a rugby field in Dublin there, same way in front of a half-filled Nevada stadium, you had a lot of hands over the ear hole. But I just thought it was clunky. And nobody, I'm hoping, for Bama and Auburn fans who are watching, that Hugh and Caleb have had enough work with their QBs that it runs a little smoother. I really thought Rhett Lashlee and the pace he likes to play at, which is the old Gus Malzahn pace, the NASCAR pace, I really thought it disrupted what they were trying to do. They never got into NASCAR, they like to call it, and they really were lucky to get out with a win. I like it. I just thought it would be used a little bit better, but it was week 0, so I'll give it another shot coming up a little bit later on.
And I tell you what, if you were one of the people, I'm not going to name names or try to project irrationally on anybody because I have therapy on Wednesday. I need to pace myself until I get there. But if you were one of the people that may have bet on SMU, the best first quarter offense in the country last year, to beat Nevada by 7 points in the first quarter or win by 14 in the first half, that was not a sight to see that you want to see. It was a tough day for me and my bookie the other day.
Yeah, mybookie.ag is our big sponsor, and my friend, I guess friend's the only way I can say it. I was trying to think of a word for my rival. She's big Auburn girl, Little T, Taylor Korn, who runs our social media site, does her own podcast. I think she was a perfect 2-0 on Saturday. I was just the opposite. I was 0-2. I was Florida State minus the 10.5. I was SMU. I thought they would kill them. I thought it would be play everybody, score everybody, and it would be a 40-point win for SMU. And it did not end up that way. It was really disappointing the way SMU looked.
Yeah.
In the end, I wasn't surprised by Florida State as much as I was the way SMU looked. Which one surprised you the most?
SMU, I think, because SMU is their first game going into a Power 4 conference. I've heard people all offseason talk about how you thought they might be a dark horse to win the ACC. And listen, I do think SMU is going to be a good team in the ACC. Like, they're in a fertile recruiting ground. They are going to be able, and they're on an island out there too for the ACC. Like, they're going to have to compete with Texas and A&M and some other like Texas schools. But like, it's a good school. It's deep pockets. It's all that kind of stuff. And the ACC is the weakest conference there is in the Power 4. So it felt like they were going to come out and set the world on fire because that's what they've done the past 2 years. Like it's a top. Like I wasn't making a joke when I said they had the number 1 scoring offense by like in the first quarter of games last year. They were like number 7 overall in the first half. They get out early and they get on you quick, and they just looked like there were so many dumb mistakes. Like they had a spitting penalty, which I haven't seen before. They had multiple hands to the face for 15 yards. One of them was like on a 3rd and 17. It was really bad. And the FSU thing wasn't as surprising, even though it was still surprising, because you're in year 2 of Brent Key, and I think Brent Key has really turned that program around up front in the trenches.
Well, let me tell you why Florida State did not surprise me, and it's this graphic right here. DJU is a problem for the Seminoles. We'll get a lot of first reactions with new quarterbacks, but there should be nothing that surprises us about DJ Uiagalelei. He is who he is. He was this way at Clemson. He was this way at Oregon State. He's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. And the fact of the matter is, Jordan Travis was a great quarterback who had great receivers and great running backs. And Florida State has DJ Uiagalelei now, and they've got a couple of Alabama cast-offs were really good role players for Alabama. But they were not the cream of the crop at Alabama, and they're there. The receiving core is not as good. The running game's not as good. The offensive line got manhandled by Georgia Tech, and DJU did not look good. Florida State's got a problem, I think.
Well, yeah, it's weird, too, because it was like – it very much looked like a team that did not understand any kind of sense of urgency. It felt like they had read all their own press clippings and that they had bought into their hype. And the hype should have been, hey, guys, you're coming off like something that should have lit a fire under your ass all off season. Like you should have come out with your hair on fire and had the biggest chip on your shoulder in the country. And after the first drive, it was embarrassing like, at a lot of times. Like it really was embarrassing. And I thought that with DJU, like to push back on like we know exactly what it is. I think you're right, even though it's still after one game in this season. But we've seen multiple times over the past couple of years, quarterbacks that have been in college for 5+ years, that extra COVID year, even if they're traveled guys that have been to 2 or 3 schools, like Hendon Hooker is a guy. I know Stetson was in college since like the Reagan administration, and he, didn't come away with a degree, but definitely got 2 natties. Like there's something to be said for guys that have been here in college football and are grown men at like 24 that have found success, especially at this position. DJU is just not it. Like he's just not. He's not it. And everything else that we saw we heard, like Pete Thamel beforehand saying that he heard it was the best defensive line in college football, that turned out to be a huge farce.
Yeah. Unless Georgia Tech just ends up having one of those magical years. And listen, I've been around a long time. I never saw 2010 Auburn coming. Mm-hmm. Never saw that coming. And, there was a 4th down play in Lexington, Kentucky that year. That, probably if Cam Newton doesn't make a great play falling out of bounds, throwing it downfield for a first down, 2010 probably doesn't happen for Auburn.
There was like 7 come from behind wins that year for that team.
But that team came out of nowhere and went all the way to win a national championship. So who knows what Georgia Tech turns into? And right. I loved what Coach has done over there as an offensive line guy with Jeff Collins, and he sort of just took over a mess. And now he's 5-0. Against ranked ACC opponents. I mean, damn, that's good, man. That's good stuff right there. And he did it not even panicking, because I told my wife, she was getting ready to go back to college, and she goes, "Oh, you got good football today?" I said, "No, I got this one good game. It's going to be a blowout with SMU. I got this one good game." And Florida State just marched it down the field. It's about to be 30-0 before you know it, too. And then after that, Georgia Tech, they never got a break in that game. Georgia Tech, there were 50-yard field goals for Florida State. There was a safety. There was a swinging gate 2-point conversion. All that, and Georgia Tech still won the football game.
They just, like, I think people are having a hard time understanding that because Tech has become a laughingstock over the last 10 years or so. And listen, I'm from Atlanta. I'm born and raised in the 404 in the ATL. I grew up going to games at Bobby Dodd. Like I love. They are my second favorite team, always have been. But that's a program that should not have ever been down this far because of the talent alone in like inside of the 285 is like it should have been enough to carry that program. And in the state of Georgia, I think it's at this point surpassed California in terms of being a part of Florida, Texas, and Georgia as the big 3 in high school football recruiting. So it should have never gotten this far down. But to watch Brent Key come in, be 5-0 against ranked teams. Like I think they said he was, I think it was something crazy. Like they were 7-2 against the spread as an underdog. Yeah. Now they're 8-2 and they're 6-4 outright in those games. Like it's been really fun to watch. I don't like you said, I don't know what they're going to be, what the finished product is going to be, but they got a really good quarterback. I mean, like people also don't get this either. Like Haynes King, it was him and only one other person last year that had at least 2,800 yards passing, at least 700 yards rushing, and then double-digit touchdowns for each. And it was him and Jaden Daniels. So, like, that's a really, really good quarterback.
A few comments before we talk about the week 1 games coming up starting on Thursday night. A landmine believer, helmet comm could be a huge advantage for a team like Georgia. The Saban Kirby defense has always struggled with tempo. So if it slows teams down just a beat, that's a huge advantage for a team like Georgia. What do you think about that? I mean, it did. I think it gave Georgia Tech a little time, and of course Nevada a little time to get right defensively.
I'm just confused as the wording of it, because it's saying it's a benefit for Georgia, but then also it's given Saban and Kirby fits. I'm not even saying it's wrong. I will say I don't think that Georgia's going to need any benefits or help this year. I think they're going to be really, really good. But yeah, I mean, I think it is one of those things where it's like we've seen teams in the past struggle, and it's one of the things that like teams like Sark is really good at this, Lane's really good at this, and surprisingly, Mike Bobo is apparently like been a good coordinator in his first year back at Georgia. But like being able to get into an offense and have your personnel on the field be a mismatch for the defense for multiple plays at a time, because you can't like the new substitution rules, like you can't sub out if it's hurry up or whatever. Like I think that kind of stuff, and having coaches that are mindful of that will make it more difficult on defense. Going back to Florida State, it didn't look like Mike Norvell knew what he was doing ahead of time from play to play. It felt like it was like me playing a video game. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this now and then see where I'm at, and we'll just reassess.
Yeah, and he was searching. Like I have to do. I was like, no, let's coach's suggestions. No, let's get off, and I want to go to the gun. Let me go to the gun. Courtney says it's going to be so much fun watching Marler talk Alabama football this year. You're excited about that. I mean, you got South Carolina, you got some SEC conversation, but you really want to talk Alabama.
Cody Kirk said this to me. I called him after you called me about potentially doing this thing with y'all, and I like lit up, and I talked to Cody Kirk afterwards, and I was telling him, he was like, would you be able to do it time wise? And I was like, all right, I think I said, I was like, I just got to figure out if I'd be able to do it. Like I have enough time during the week. And sorry, the dog is running around the back. Okay. But I was like, I think I can do it. But he was like, dude, you're going to talk about Bama for at least an hour a day during football season. You might as well be doing it like on air and having fun with that group. And I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. So I'm ecstatic to be able to do it. If 9-year-old me knew that I was going to get to do this season, he would be ecstatic too.
Hey, 11-year-old me still excited about doing it all these years later. Kevin on Facebook, 10 p.m. every Sunday. Dunaway, you're going to make it on time tomorrow? Dude, I don't sleep when I'm dead. I'm not going to sleep right now, right?
Yeah.
This is Charlie. He says, time to let quarterbacks call the plays again. Coaches will never do that. I don't know why. They do it in the 2 minutes sometimes, but I for some tempo teams, man, you can leave the helmet comms in, but I keep the signs going, man. I'm gonna want to keep going with pace. What about this? This is interesting. Michael wants to know, any chance this FSU team makes the playoffs? Now, this is where automatic bids become very important, I think.
What a story that would be, huh? If they did, considering they didn't make it undefeated a year ago. It's possible, because if it's an automatic bid, they get in. I think the downside of this FSU thing is, even though they beat LSU the last 2 years, if they had lost those games, especially out of conference, not as big of a concern, right? Like you don't have any losses, or you don't have a loss like in the loss column in conference. Not often do you have a team that starts a season, especially in the SEC, against another conference opponent. So they are already at a disadvantage. But here's the other thing too, is like they still get Clemson at home. They got to go to Miami, but that's not a difficult road environment. So if they go 7-1 or 8-1 or however many games they play in the ACC, then yeah, I think they could still go on and win. And maybe this is what they need for the chip on the shoulder. Because again, it just did not look like that was a team that is coming off a brutal offseason where they were wronged, like all their fans thought.
No, time to go out and prove a point, and they ended up not proving a point. It's a tough way to start the season. And luckily they get an extra day. They play Monday night. They get a Boston College team they should handle, and then they'll get into their season. Not a back-breaking schedule for them. So it should be.
How did that become the Monday night game?
I don't know. It's good. It's well planned by Florida State. And their athletic department there, because Michael Alford and them did a good job, because coming back, they were still in Ireland today. I think I heard Barrett Sallee on Sirius XM saying that they stayed an extra day to tour the, what's the beer over there?
Guinness.
The Guinness factory. They were going to tour the Guinness factory, which, now that we've got gambling, we've got NIL, why not, why don't we go ahead and just tour the liquor factories too while we're in college? It's no big deal, right?
Yeah.
The old school guys are going crazy. Yes, Royal Payne, Montana State had a good comeback as well.
Awesome.
but they were supposed to cover too. They were favored in that game. That was another loss for me at mybookie.ag. I want to talk about some games while I have you here coming up for this week, and then we'll end with some more comments at the end. But let's run through some of the games. First one out of the gate, North Dakota State, Colorado, coming up Thursday night. Everyone sees North Dakota State, and they think, oh, that's the team that always beats the FBS team. Feels like this North Dakota State team is not as good as their heritage. It's the other Dakotas that may be better. Is Coach Prime in trouble in this game, or do you think Colorado is good enough to hold on and win this one?
I mean, with all the talk we get about Colorado, it's just funny either way that they're an 8-point favorite, or maybe it climbed it to 9.5 or something like that at this point. But it's been around 7 or 8, like for most of the offseason against an FCS team. I think that it's a team that shouldn't sneak up on them by any means. So it'll be interesting to see what they look like. My biggest thing is I don't know anything about North Dakota State. The only thing I know about the Dakotas is that it's the epitome of American greed that we have 2 of them. There's no chance that we need 2 Dakotas. We could just have one.
Just Dakota.
Yeah, just Dakota, right?
Yeah. You guys combine, we'll give you Dakota, and then you guys join the FBS. We'll put you in the Big 12.
I love it. I love that. So I think it'll be interesting. But this is one of my favorite things about college football is, in this day and age, especially with social media, is listen, you're doing the show in Alabama, and there's going to be people tuned in, I think, on Thursday night who don't give a blank about either one of these programs, but they will unifyingly hate watch Colorado in hopes that they lose. Like that first month of the season last year where everybody was watching Colorado hoping they would lose was a really fun part of the season. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And we make no judgment the fact that we know most of the country watches Alabama game and they hope they lose. It's part of what Nick Saban created there. It was that way back when Bear Bryant was there. There are certain teams, when they're on a roll, people tune in to watch them lose. When I was a little bitty kid, anytime Notre Dame was losing, baby, I turned it on just to watch those beautiful Irish tears fall down the cheeks. It didn't happen a lot. And I know people do that to Alabama too. So hate watching Colorado is okay. On Saturday, boy, am I looking forward to this one. Yeah. Neil Brown coached in our state for a while down at Troy. He was going to get fired at West Virginia. I try to keep up. I don't think there are many coaches who were as far along on the firing process as Neil Brown was that ever turned it around. He showed a little light last year at the end of the tunnel, and this would be a great way to start the year, pulling the upset in this border rivalry.
So let me get this straight. He was what did they go 8-4 last year?
Yep. And it felt like they won the national championship.
Right. Like an incredible job, because I thought he was all but fired, and he'd only been there for a short period of time. I mean, there was a time there where people, I think, he was in line for maybe an SEC gig for what he did at Troy. I'm excited about this game. I think it's a fun rivalry. It's a fun, unique area in the old school. I'm old. No offense. I'm not. We're not that far apart in age, okay?
We're far enough.
But I mean, but this is a game that I remember watching growing up and stuff like that. And it's a very, very bitter rivalry between these two teams. They don't like each other at all. I will say this. This is going to sound, I'm going to, against my better judgment, I'm going to buy in and drink the Kool-Aid for Penn State, because I think that this is a program that you talk about them and Notre Dame. This is 2 programs that will benefit more than anyone for this 12-team playoff, because they are when's the last time you've seen Penn State ranked below 12? I feel like it's been at least 5 years. They are always, 10-2 is the ceiling and the floor for them. Drew Allar is a guy that we have seen struggle mightily on the big stage. But when you take a step back and you look at his entire season of work and his entire body of work last year, 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, he's got a chance to be a really, really good quarterback for Penn State. I think they are going to be a really good team this year.
Royal Payne thinks it may be the most dramatic game of the weekend when you talk about Penn State and West Virginia. Clemson and Georgia, everyone has painted this as an easy Georgia win. I don't know about you, but last week in the first episode of Dunaway After Dark, I gave my playoff teams. I've got Clemson. This was before Florida State lost. I got Clemson winning. I think Clemson's defense is going to be great. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in this game, Marler, because I don't know if Georgia has the playmakers at wide receiver and tight end. I want to see what they can do with Clemson. I may be wrong that Georgia may come out and boat race them, or as I call it on the show, motorboat them. They may just get in there and motorboat them.
Yeah.
I think Clemson may keep this closer than the experts think.
I don't. This is my lock of the week. Like hammer Georgia, because here's the thing. I know we said it earlier with FSU, and we were disappointed that they came out and didn't really, have that chip on their shoulder. Kirby will have a chip on these guys' shoulders, like 1,000%. That pregame speech, I would love to be a fly on the wall and hear the stuff he's going to say, because I guarantee you, like it will not be something that you will ever hear Dabo Swinney say or even want to hear, because of the language is going to be used in that locker room. But I do think Clemson can be good. I do the thing that's I think they get you most excited for them if you're a Clemson fan is that they have two freshmen or two young receivers that are probably the best two on the team, and probably the best two receivers they've had there in the last 5 or 6 years, dating back to Justin Ross even. So I think that they can be good. Georgia is on a different level, I think, roster-wise, and they are going to be pissed going into this game, because they were in that building a year ago, and they were 3 points away from winning a third national championship. So I think that Georgia puts it on them, because it's a national stage. And here's the thing, man. Like think about the last time they were put on a national stage to start the season in this building. Like, it was 2 years ago against Oregon, and I don't think it's going to be 49-3 or anything like that, but I think it's going to be like very, very one-sided.
Yeah. And for you Clemson fans, if that happens, remember that happened to Bo Nix in Oregon.
Yeah.
And they gradually built into something pretty good again. Expanded playoffs. Clemson can still get there, even if they get motorboated by Georgia coming up this weekend. Rowback.com, promo code TNR20, TNR20, 20% off. The new Auburn and Alabama team gear, other teams as well. I mentioned Notre Dame. If you're a Notre Dame fan watching, they've got your stuff. They got some hokey high stuff for Virginia Tech. Go check it all out. Rowback.com, promo code TNR20. Get you 20% off right there. Okay, this is Dunaway After Dark, brought to you by Rowback. He's Chris Marler. He is at Vern Funquist College Football, or CFP, at Vern Funquist CFP on all of his social media. You get him everywhere, including on our platform now, covercrimson.com, covercrimson.com. Miami, Florida, the old Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama, when I was a kid, is when the traveling wrestling show would come in once a week. I think it was Monday nights, and occasionally they'd have loser leave town, the damn Yankees. My grandmother hated them. My grandmother spit snuff. She used to weld ships in World War II in Mobile Bay, and she thought wrestling was real. If I ever told her it was scripted, Granny, she would almost bring a switch out and spank me. She thought it was real.
What a deep cut.
And let me
Did
tell
she make you pick it out?
I would have to go out on a pear tree and pull out my own switch. Absolutely. My granny hated the damn Yankees for obvious reasons. She was a Southern lady, and she hated the damn Yankees. In a loser leave town contest one time, they lost. They had to leave town, and I thought she was going to jump over the railing at Boutwell Auditorium in her 60s to kick those guys back up across the Mason-Dixon line. This feels like a loser leaves town coaching kind of game, especially for Billy Napier on one side. He needs this win pretty badly.
I just want to know how close our families are geographically, and it sounds like emotionally very close, because the Marlers over there in Anniston, Alabama, where my family's from, that sounds very similar to a lot of them. I got a 42-year-old cousin named Eric with a K who can't ride a bike, but he can tell you every WWF champion in the last 40 years for sure. So
let me throw out a couple of names on my family tree. I've got a Charlene, Aunt Charlene. I have a Otis. My grandmother was Hazel. I mean, I got some names.
Jim.
I've got some names. Tawana. There's a Tawana.
I got a Tawana.
Tree. You got a Tawana?
I got a Tawana for sure, dude. So listen, Mary Jo.
This is like hillbillyology.
Ain't Sarah, and I called her Sarah when I was 15 at the family reunion. She goes, "It's Sarah," and I was like, "Cool, I guess we'll never speak again." Yeah, Granny T, F, Skint. We have a Tiny Dooney and a Pug, and I was like, "Those are great nicknames," and they're like, "Those are real names." And I was like,
"Those are real names."
I want no part of it. My actual family genes means like it's like a denim and umbilical cord that I came out with. Like that's how white trash my family is. But anyway, no, the Miami versus Florida game. I think the funniest thing that could happen in college football this year is if Florida goes 3-0 in the state of Florida, but that means they're 5-7 still overall. Like they could win the state of Florida against UCF, FSU, and Miami and still go 5-7. I think Miami's gonna be really good this year. I think them and Ole Miss, I keep saying, it's like a Major League Baseball team that has like gone all in after the All-Star break because they think they have a chance to make a run in the playoffs. So it's like right before the trade deadline, they make some moves. That's what Miami and Ole Miss both feel like to me this year. But I like the closer we get to the season, what I'm hearing out of Gainesville in general, which is like, I mean, if you talk to people that are close to the program down there, a few of them think that like he's closer to a contract extension than he is getting fired. And like, I don't know how realistic that is because that sounds crazy to me. But like, it mainly sounds crazy because the entire public that's outside of Gainesville has been saying for 2 years that he's going to get fired because of the schedule. So still a very talented roster. They're at home. That's going to be a fun game on Saturday.
It really is. And I know I have no street cred because I was 0-2 last week. I like Florida in this game straight up. Money line.
Really? Okay. I like that.
Yeah. Roback.com, promo code TR20. Just a couple of more. We've gone longer than I told you we would, but I enjoy your conversation.
Totally I got nothing to do.
And I enjoy the bourbon. Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Now, my man LT is all in on Texas A&M. Now, he said if it got to 3.5 on a gambling side, he thinks that's going to be a little high. I think it was 3 the last time I checked. But he's all in on Texas A&M winning this game outright over Notre Dame. And that's probably, until the people look at the betting line, that's probably against the national narrative because a lot of people are penciling Notre Dame into the playoffs and they're not talking Texas A&M. And maybe it could be the other way around.
I'll tell you this, Jim. My dad had 2 sayings, and if Courtney is still in here, she's heard this joke before, but he had 2 sayings. One of them was, "I'm leaving," and the other one was, "Listen, they don't build all those buildings out in the middle of the desert by not knowing what they're doing out in Vegas." And one of those, like for the rest of my life, I was like, that is a very, very solid point. Why is Texas A&M a 2.5-point favorite over the number 7 team in the country, who's going to be very good this year? Like, I think Notre Dame is definitely playoff bound. I hate their schedule because I'm so tired of watching them play military institutes in Major League Baseball stadiums. I don't care. Like, that does nothing for me. But them going on the road to Kyle Field in that heat in the first game of the season and being in a situation where they do have the same OC that was at LSU last year with all that success. They got Riley Leonard, who's coming off an injury, but still really good. There's just something about what's happening in College Station where it's like it's eerily quiet for some reason. And I don't know if it's like, the bad man's gone because Jimbo finally is gone and they're on their way to financial freedom. But like, I just get the feeling that A&M is going to win this game and be a nightmare for teams this year. And I don't know why. Like I've said over and over and over again, we shouldn't be putting them in the top 10 every year because the schedule's too hard and it's only going to leave everyone disappointed. Right.
Yep.
But it feels like this year, even though that schedule is they're bookended with 2 top 10 teams at home against Notre Dame and Texas, it feels like A&M could be like a very big thorn in the side of the entire SEC this year.
You make Texas A&M sound like they just graduated from Dave Ramsey's college.
Yeah.
They paid off their credit cards and cut them up. They paid cash for their car, financial freedom for the Aggies. No Jimbo Fisher anymore. Interesting game here. And to your point, Alabama Notre Dame numbers in Vegas because of both of their popularities in gambling circles coast to coast. If Notre Dame is a 2.5-point underdog, they know they're going to take a lot of Notre Dame bets. So that's a scary number there. If you get into
it's moved up. It was at 1 like a month ago. So it's like it's even more so in favor of A&M.
Hey, one more on Sunday night. I love the Sunday night game. Every year gets great numbers. President Trump would say huge numbers. They get huge numbers. USC and LSU in Vegas. I shocked Lance when I did my 12 teams last week.
Oh, I like this.
I've got USC sneaking in, man. I got USC.
The playoff?
Yeah, Lincoln Riley without all the blue chippers, the NIL problems have gone away. Miller Moss, underrated quarterback, not the Caleb Williams. I think he does his magic only because they'll be looking for that 4th Big Ten team. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
And I think USC sneaks into the playoffs this year. And we'll see what happens against LSU. I like LSU in this game. I just don't think it's going to be the blowout or the high-scoring affair everyone thinks it's going to be.
I really like that pick, Jim. I really do. I think it's outside the box for one, but also I think you're spot on with the fact they're going to get 4 teams in the Big Ten. You're going to probably get 4 teams from the SEC. I think that you're destined for that, for both of them, because the Big Ten, dude, they have 18 teams, right? So it's like Ohio State and Oregon seem like they're locks, but everyone else, we'll see. Michigan's going to fall off the face of the earth. I do believe that. But I do think with USC, like you said, Miller Moss you saw him in the bowl game, and I know it's a small sample size, but kid had 6 touchdowns. He was the whatever bowl they were in, I think Holiday Bowl MVP. If there's one thing Lincoln Riley knows how to do, we know damn well it's not cook a brisket at all.
That's right.
But one thing he does know how to do is replace elite Heisman level quarterbacks like year over year. He's done it repeatedly at Oklahoma. It'll be interesting to see what they look like in that Big Ten. I think you're right. I think they lose to LSU. I think LSU is going to be very, very good again. And I don't know how much higher they can go versus last year because we saw how bad that defense was and it should be improved. I think LSU wins this game because, listen, USC finally made a change at defensive coordinator, but and Brian Kelly did everything he was supposed to do in this offseason. He replaced 5 defensive assistants, including the DC. Got Bo Davis as D-line coach, Corey Raymond as a defensive backs coach. But is the talent there? I think they're going to get tested early, especially in that secondary. I do think they win, but it's interesting, man, because that line also has come down in the past couple of days from 6 to 4.5.
I like that.
There you go.
I like that. All right. When can I see your show with Clinton Lamb at covercrimson.com? Tell me a time for that.
Jim, listen, I've had some bourbon, so I'll just tell you the truth. I don't know. He texts me on Monday and we figure out the once or twice a week I'm on. So it's, I've been trying to get some more concrete scheduling out of Clint. Also, Clint, bless his heart, he's up at 6 a.m. and asleep at 8:45. So we have our sleep cycle is very different. We should be recording every, I believe, Monday and Wednesday, and then Friday as well. Doing some SEC picks on Friday, and then we have our show all tied up. I believe, like I said, Monday and Wednesday. But it's been a ton of fun. It's great to talk about Bama, mix it up with people. There's only been a handful of people in the comments that say that I suck and we should not be on the show anymore because I think Ty Simpson's a good backup. It's been a ton of fun.
Ty Simpson is a good backup.
I agree.
Yeah. Alabama may be in the best I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Alabama's not in a better backup situation than Texas is. Ty Simpson's not as cool of a name as Arch Manning.
Right.
But I think I trust Ty Simpson at least equally as much as I do Arch Manning.
Isn't it kind of cool, Jim, if you think about it? I know that you told me 20. I hope we can just keep riffing for a second here.
Oh, I don't care. We go nonstop.
Isn't it kind of cool that with Bama this year, I do think that you've had an offseason where the entire rest of the country has sit there and told you well, Jalen Milroe sucks. You saw him in the game against Michigan. He's not any good. Because I think the entire country tuned in that Texas game last year and was oop, 2 bad interceptions. He's not any good. That they're going to be terrible, blah, blah, blah. You saw, USF, they almost lost the week after, even though he didn't play. And then that just became the narrative for Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, fun fact for you, in 14 games as a starter, right? The A&M game and then last year, he has been sacked 40 times, which is the same amount of times that A.J. McCarron was in 38 starts. It's so bad. And sure, some of that falls on him. But I feel like this quarterback room went from being the bring in Austin Mack, you lose Julian Sayin, but you still have Ty Simpson, you still get Jalen Milroe. And the fact that Simpson stuck around in this day and age, it in my eyes went from being, especially with DeBoer as the play caller in the OC or the offensive mind, you went from having in the outside world and perception this massive question mark at quarterback to what I think is maybe one of the best quarterback rooms in the country.
Yeah, and damn it, he stayed.
Yeah,
that means something. That means something. He stayed, man. I love that.
What Michael Bill said, by the way.
Yeah,
Michael Bill said because he couldn't get a snap to him.
Yeah,
I'm not making this number up. In the Rose Bowl game, there were 65 total offensive plays, and 33 of the snaps from Seth McLaughlin were off target. When you start a play, an actual offensive play in American football, the first thing that has to happen is the center has to snap the ball to the quarterback. And if you are over 50% of the time snapping it left, right, over his head, at his feet, that's a really difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, I will tell you, it was like catching Tim Wakefield last year. Trying to catch a knuckleball coming from the center. Can't wait to see Ohio State on the field either. It's going to be a fun week.
Yeah.
Again, roback.com, promo code TNR20. Man, thank you. I hope you'll jump on with me on a Sunday night later into the season. I'm going to try to roll some different people in and out of here since we do this after dark for free. But I just love this time of night. because not a lot of people do a show this time of night. It's
Yeah.
Sunday night. A lot of times it'll be right as the NFL game is ending. We've got a whole week before you go to your Monday sports shows and everything. I like a good Sunday night bourbon and sit down and get ready for the week. I do show notes on Sunday night, so this is just some of the stuff I've been thinking about.
Mhm.
And I love you, and I
love
love
you
the
more,
work
Jim.
you do. You're just a funny dude. I love your perspective on things, and I can't wait to see all the great things that are going to happen for you this year and the future. So thank you for
brother.
spending your Sunday night with me. Okay.
Yeah, of course. I want a hat though. I do want a hat. I appreciate all the kind words, but I want a hat.
Oh, you go to the store
No.
next round. No, not buy it. Just go to the store, nextround.store, and just screenshot the one you want, and we'll send it to you.
You're the best. I appreciate
This
that.
This one's fitted. I'm
Ooh,
bald.
okay.
I'm bald, by the way, for those that don't know. But this one's fitted.
I want that hat, and I want the y'all can have the rest shirt that Peter Burns always wears.
That was the and if you knew mine and Brown's relationship, I do not give him compliments well. We got 2 T-shirts, the original logo gray, and then we were getting ready for SEC Media Days, and we went out there the first day, and the Texas-Oklahoma announcement came down. So we didn't start our show until August 16th, and we came back in our makeshift offices while they were building our studios, and he says, I got a T-shirt idea, and he and John Lunsford got together and came up with that, and it's by far all the T-shirts we've had, that's been my favorite since day one. I just have to pretend I just sort of like it when I'm around Brown.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, anytime you need me to come on here, listen, as the season goes on, I'm sure I'm going to get into a lot of dumb little fights with the Auburn fan GF. So you just let me know, and I'll slip on here for 20 to 40 minutes. So I can't wait.
I like the way you did that. 20 to 40 minutes. I told you 20. We did 44. Works out good. All right. That's Dunaway After Dark, episode 2, week 0. Enjoy it. By the way, if you go over to our social media sites, I've sent out this week's worksheet. So you've got all the start times and some of the highlight games to pay attention to. Chris, thank you. Enjoy the bourbon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Okay.
Sounds good, brother.
All right. See you, man.